So from there, I kind of had an interest that, okay, this is a very good problem that is socially impactful, and I need to solve it somehow. The problem itself is very
Right.
challenging as well as socially relevant. So you can see the problem happening a lot in the platforms. So I think that kind of motivated me to tackle this problem. Through the course of this project or through the course of this like journey, I was like gradually transitioning to do a PhD. So you should really explore different directions. So for the first year or let's say 6 months, you try to explore the areas which you are looking into. So now you need to choose among these different research gaps and try to select, okay, this is like more or less the thesis plan for me. Like it depends again on what kind of guidance you want. Like I have written around 15 to 20 proposals, like research proposals, of which all have gotten rejected. PhD seniors are very accommodating, like they are very friendly. They will not like ask you to give your introductions, etc.
There is no ragging in the research lab.
Yeah, there is no right. So I think one definite quality that you develop if you want to do a PhD is perseverance.
Thank you, Punyajoy, for participating in this podcast. So, if you just introduce yourself to the audience first.
So I am Punyajoy Saha. So I am a recent. I have submitted my thesis recently. So I am done my PhD from IIT Kharagpur, and before that I was doing my undergrad in IIT Kharagpur, which was earlier known as BSU. I did my schooling mostly from Kendriya Vidyalayas, etc. Like it was central. Apart from that education, I also love traveling a lot and playing table tennis and also do some adventure sports. And recently, I joined Samsung, which is in Bangalore, the R&D division.
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. So, when you have decided to, pursue PhD, what was your primary motivation behind that, and why did you choose IIT Kharagpur for your PhD?
So when I was doing my undergrad, I had a keen interest in solving different problems. So that was not provided by the college education. Like I was into different robotic group or who are working on some challenging problems, like let's say drones and different like swarm robotics, etc. So from there, I think I had an interest towards like projects which have like different challenges. And apart from that, also I was very interested in machine learning. So I started learning about it in my second year. So I think that was also something which I wanted to pursue. And PhD was a good opportunity to do that. Like I can actually like merge both these things, like my understanding of machine learning, also like challenging problem. And the IIT Kharagpur part, I would say, is a bit like fortunate. Like based on different incidents, it's like very fortunate that I got here because I was an intern here in IIT Kharagpur under with Bini Matthew and Animesh Mukherjee. So
Okay.
from there, I really loved the problem that they're tackling. So the problem that time was how to like detect hateful language. So that initially, so I was not in much of social media that time, but I was not even in Twitter. So, but then I got into the problem and actually understood why this problem is very rampant in the current
Right.
media or platforms, etc. So from there, I kind of had an interest that, okay, this is a very good problem that is socially impactful, and I need to solve it somehow. And I was involved from there. So the transition to a PhD was very gradual. So for me, it was not like I was trying to select something, but it through the course of this project or through the course of this like journey, I was like gradually transitioning to do a PhD. So I think that was the case.
So, you are intern from your third year of undergraduate or
Yeah.
in the fourth?
So
Third year.
in the third year, yes.
Okay.
And I continued working with Bini Matthew after my internship as well, because he was also liking what I was doing, and
Right.
I was liking like the environment here. So I think one of the first ones to get like this remote access outside of CNeRG. So
Okay.
usually they don't give to undergrads, etc. At that time. Now it is very much feasible, but
Right.
at that time it was specially arranged for me, so that I could work. So I think from there then onwards, I was like very interested. The problem itself is very
Right.
challenging as well as socially relevant. So you can see the problem happening a lot in the platforms. So I think that kind of motivated me to tackle this problem.
Now you have joined IIT Kharagpur as a project PhD fellow initially. So if you just explain what is a project PhD and what is the overall selection process for that.
So essentially a project like any PhD, the only difference is how they get the funding. So if you are a project PhD,
Right.
you are getting the funding from a project. Now that project might be a government project or a private project, or like those are the two entities. Now, based on the funding, your like project is decided. And so for me, it was like a project from Adobe. So that was like pre-selected by my supervisor. One difference from the traditional PhD that we usually see is that you already talk with the particular professor beforehand, and
Right.
then he decides like what projects you can work on. And then there is an interview, like an open call, in open interview call, and there are multiple students actually participate, and from that you get selected. And so that is like the project selection part. Like how do you become a project fellow first? So without becoming a project fellow, you cannot directly join the project PhD. Once you become the project fellow, then you are already like part of that system. Like let's say IIT.
Right.
Now we apply for the PhD. So then it becomes like the same for what like any traditional PhD will do. Like who is
Right.
doing from like applying from outside. They will also sit for the exam. You will also sit for the exam. You both have to like clear the exam, and then. But the initial part of getting the projects is through talking with your supervisor, like who you have chosen to like as a mentor. So he will guide you to like select which project is available, what is how to apply there, and so in the project part also there is an interview for selection into
Right.
the project. But that is very because we already know the professor, so I think that is very easy to handle.
And now I think you have already talked about it, that how did you figure out your research statement and the supervisor, but what should be your kind of advice to a particular student who is struggling to find out his or her research statement and struggling to find a suitable advisor for that?
Yeah, there are two parts. So the first, the statement. So I think a very important point that I think a lot of like because of this current publication race we are forgetting is that we need to like think about research problems. So I think that is kind of like a lot of times we miss that part. So I think one of my mentors, like Benny, actually told about it a lot in the initial phases that you should read papers. So you can read papers. So you should really explore different directions. So for the first year or let's say 6 months, you try to explore the areas which you are looking into. So basically, try to read papers from top conferences. For example, if you're into ML or NLP, let's say NLP, so you try to read the trending works or the works which you like from the ACL community. So that kind of forms your basic understanding of what is happening in the field. Because unless you
Right.
know what is happening in the field, it is difficult to like create a problem statement or discuss something. The next step is to identify challenge gaps. So that can be there can be different ways to do that. One is you do it alone. So that is a very tricky part. If you do it alone, it might take let's say 2-3 months to do that. And another can be you sit with your supervisor or mentor or some colleagues from your same, like seniors from your batch, and then decide, okay, these are the areas I'm thinking. And what do you think about it? Like, so we initially actually, Binny and I sat with like 3-4 times to discuss, okay, these are the areas where we can look for problems. So that is the second part. So once you identify that, then, so, and even this research got might be very different. For example, for me, one of the directions was this multimodal hit. Another one was counter speech. Another one was like fear speech, etc. So now you need to choose among these different research gaps and try to select. Okay, this is like more or less the thesis plan for me. Like it might change over course of time. That is not
Right.
very.
Right.
You cannot make it static. You have to be adaptive to the changes in the research academia or something like that. But for that time you have a goal that you can, okay, this is my goal for the next three years. Let's say. About the advisor, I would say it depends again on what kind of guidance you want. For me, I know personally that I can handle projects. So from my undergrad only, I was handling different people and etc. So I was pretty confident that okay, I can handle students, but I need a little bit of guidance into what direction to take. So in that case, getting a slightly bit senior professor might be helpful. On the other hand, if in a area where if you are unsure that you need more hand-holding. So for example, you need more technical expertise into the problem. Then selecting a recent professor or like younger professor might be helpful because you need more guidance. So there are pros and cons of both of this. You can get technical guidance from these professors, but the professors who are senior in age, you might get very good directions, but that much level of technical expertise you might not get. And apart from that, always try to, I would say, one important part that I always try to mention, or I asked also, that what is the work-life balance, like how do they manage meetings, etc. That should be also taken in consideration, like if your working pattern actually matches with your professor or not.
Right.
So those things, I think those two things are important when you're looking for an advisor.
Now coming to the fact that you are a PMRF fellow as well. So how did PMRF happen? Because you joined as a project PhD candidate, and then how did you convert it into a PMRF?
So the PMRF thing, actually, I was trying for a while. So it was not like the first chance PMRF that I got. So I remember that when I was finishing my internship, there was this first or second PMRF. 2019 was the call that I was interested in. So first call that I submitted, like the proposal that I submitted, was with my undergrad professor. So she was in my mini projects and also the term like BTech projects. So there I selected a problem and asked her to like review it, etc. So I applied there and it was rejected. Then again I tried in the second call that was around like, let's say 2020, some July or something, before joining even IIT Kharagpur. So I met with Professor Animesh, and then we decided, okay, this is one direction. Like at that time, I was more or less aware of what hateful research was, and I was thinking, okay, I can get the PMRF and then join it. That time we wrote the proposal with Professor Animesh and Benny, who is now a PhD as well. And then that time I got selected to the PMRF. Like I was shortlisted for the position. I think there was 2 rounds in that. And the first round was a 1-to-1 with one of the professor. It was, I think, awesome.
So it was before COVID, right? When there was a 1-to-1 interview.
You have to. I also traveled to Delhi and then
Delhi
give the interview. So it was quite a different experience than whatever interviews I've given after that. So you have to take a hostel and etc. And in the second, there was a group of panels. So that was a very tricky round because they were actually testing you on the feasibility of the problem. So anyone can give any problem, but whether it is feasible or not, whether your problems addresses some bias or not, those they're actually testing. So I could answer some of them, but I think I was not selected. So that was the second time. And then since it did not happen, so I joined PhD, the project PhD. And after that, so I thought, okay, now it is gone. The direct calls are gone, so I cannot apply again. So I have to be a PhD, like a project PhD, and I was looking for fellowship. So like my TCS fellowship, I think I have. And then they released this lateral call, so you can join after this. So I could have applied in 2020 July, but my credit was not, like, I think English was remaining. So I then applied in the December cycle. So the proposal that I gave was almost like similar with a bit modification of what I gave earlier. So that was kind of thing. So after getting the lateral, so that was more like from the recommendation of the professor from the department. At that time also had 2-3 papers. So that was beneficial to the process.
Now coming to the fact that we who are currently pursuing PhD, so we are kind of a special batch because we have gone through COVID, and there was a life before COVID and there was a life after COVID. So how COVID affected your PhD life, and how was your research life before COVID, and what are the changes happened, after COVID when you came back to your lab and started working?
So there is a bit of history in there as well. So I think I was in the CNeRG lab for a long time, like starting from 2019 itself. I knew a lot of members and like a lot of senior members. There was a different different members, like altogether different members in
different people.
So like many, like Abhishek Da, then Shmomiti, all these people were like senior. Yeah, they had a very strong group there. So I was sitting with them, and they are very friendly. So anyone who talk to them, they're very approachable, and that I felt also. So that was like initial part. Just after I joined my PhD, so I was okay. I was now okay. I could get a lot of inputs from them, and like I could arrange my research accordingly. COVID happened. So like March, January I joined, and March there was everybody thought that okay, it was like 15 days. So
15
then
days.
after we returned, I also had some arrangement made. Like I kept some dry food, etc. Like so that I can survive that time. Then it felt like okay, it is happening for a longer time. So everybody pack your bags and go home. So something like that. The first challenge that happened was getting the server access remote, like online. Like
Right.
because before that there was this server which is available online, but we people like CNeRG did not work that much from home, so they don't
Right.
have like continuous support for that. So that was kind of a new thing. So we had to initially we had to mail the server team, etc. A lot of times. I think the server guys had a lot of trouble at that time to arrange everything and like make the servers available for a longer period of time. The second change was, if you look at the lab now, it is coming back to more of what we had in before COVID, pre-COVID, because the lab members are more or less getting like they are here for more than 1 month, 1 year, like so they are more or less
Right.
getting to know each other, going for tea breaks, etc. But that was once COVID happened, that was immediately cut off. So that interaction part was immediately cut off. Those people, we did not interact with them on socially that much because we were meeting daily. So you lost the interaction online also. So what it used to happen was mostly it was like we interacted through the meetings. But
Those
that
are all
was
technical discussions. There is
only
no.
technical discussion. I think a lot of part, like the coherence of the group, kind of gets affected due to this because many
Right.
people do not know each other. Like for now, also after COVID, if you see many people, we also don't know many of the newer people because they have joined after. And that was initial period of the PhD, and it was very difficult to like if you are interacting with a lot of people, you get a lot of research problems.
Right.
But when that is not happening, you are bound to research a lot more yourself. So what direction you want to take, so it is not about your supervisor only, like supervisor you interact, but also the seniors you're interacting with also give you some nice suggestions that okay, this is not working, what can you do? So that things kind of got a lot trimmed down. So you have to work a lot harder to get to
Right.
those results or find. And it was a bit isolation. So I have my brother with me, so both were like in the similar situation. So we had one room with us, so we kind of managed that. So basically, he had also had his meetings with some projects. I also had some meetings. So that time, I think more or less a lot of time was spent with the family. Probably they provided a lot of support during that time because of all the things that they took care of so that we can do our research. Because research is a very time-consuming thing. It is not like you can work for 9 to 5 and then stop. Okay, this is my. You might get an idea when you are eating also. That is the sense of research. So having that environment is very crucial where you can think freely, because if you are under a lot of responsibilities, the thinking time kind of reduces. The support of the family is very crucial. The people you are actually interacting. But one thing that happened was I was not like getting any physical exercise. I think after COVID, I felt that I had some back pain. Then
Okay.
like those things kind of emerged because during COVID, you do not have to move that much. So you get your
That
food
much.
ordered, you have your food in your room also. You do not move that much to like, but once you return to campus, you realize that okay, you have to move, you have to go to your hall, you have to get your food. That time I realized that I
Right.
was getting a bit overweight and I had some back pain. So those things kind of got turned up. And so that was one very bad thing that happened. So then I tried changing my diet and doing more exercise, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one more thing also probably you will agree that that time you are not able to visit the conferences also in the physical mode.
I was very much sad about that because so two of my papers, the first paper that I gave was web conference, so fear speech one.
Okay.
And so that was the first conference, and that was in October. I could not attend. So I thought you get two papers. Like in your PhD, the criteria is two papers. one chance is already gone. How should I travel again? Then then we had a tutorial accepted. So that was like the first time we were trying a tutorial. So it was very new experience for me as well, because I was writing the proposal for the tutorial. But that also, so I think that we had a possibility to go, since US was more or less like stable at that time. But then they were not giving much funding. So that also we missed. So through main conference, when for conference and AAA I missed, like I was, there was this hate explain paper as well, which was accepted.
Right.
So that also we did online. So hate explain actually was a very like crucial work from my perspective, and like my career as well. And we are afraid that this work might not give any, like might not gain any traction as well, because this is the first time this conference is happening online. People don't know how to access. We also don't know how to publish it. Usually in conferences, you meet people, you say that, okay, I'm presenting in poster, please come. But in online, you don't know how to do it. Conference travel was definitely one big part that I thought that I would not go. But yeah.
But later you did a lot of foreign travel.
That was kind of fortunate. But at that moment when these were happening, I thought, okay, 2 of the chances gone. And I think what many of my seniors also told me, so the PhD is a very monotonous journey. Then you are doing some small changes and you are expecting results. Half the time, 90% of the time, you are not getting the results. You are always like depressed. You are always like sad about, okay, this is not happening. What to do next? The conference traveling part, that is the time when you actually like, that is kind of the rewards of your all these struggles that you have done. You travel, you meet people, you have good food, etc. So I think having that part is very crucial. So getting the opportunity to travel, one should always do that to different conferences if you get funding. So I think that is definitely one of the advices I should give. Like
now coming to the next question. So as you all know that in our PhD we get a lot of rejections for getting our paper accepted. We often submit a paper in a conference and then we got a lot of negative reviews, and finally many a times it happened that though we got few positive reviews, but still at the end the paper got rejected. So how did you tackle these rejections?
So to like give an example of the extent of which these reviews might be bad. So one of the paper in the web conference was rejected because, so in every paper there is a figure and you write a caption. So one of the weakness that the reviewer pointed out was you have not summarized the caption in the first line of the caption. So the caption itself is the description, but he needs another summary line for doing that. And there are like different points similar to this, and the paper was rejected. So those kind of rejects is difficult to digest, I would agree. And oftentimes in our rebuttal meetings or like review meetings that we do after getting a review, oftentimes we kind of say, well, how did this reviewer say this?
Right.
But I would say a very crucial point in answering any rebuttal, like after the initial phase of, okay, this guy doesn't know anything, etc. One important thing is trying to find the constructive feedback that they are giving. So every reviewer will say their own point that this is not working, this is not novel, etc. But from that, what you need to find out is what can I add to the paper so that it makes the paper better. A lot of time we get swayed by the emotions that, okay, this guy does not know, we will have to reply something so that we can show him his place or his or her place. But in that moment also, I guess it is important that we understand like what is the thing he's trying to say. And many a times we might misunderstand what he's saying, like in the textual form. So I think after you have made all your emotions clear, it is important to think with a free mind that what is his reviews, what is actually saying. And another thing that I follow through my research career is, so essentially why these rejections affect us a lot. Because we are typically doing one project, one very optimistic project. That optimistic project might not always click with the reviewers. So many of the works in history also, like many get rejected in neurons, but then they get accepted somewhere else. If you work only on one optimistic problem, and then you get a very bad reject. So your entire work of 6 months is gone. So what I initially planned was that I will have an optimistic goal. So many of my works, like Fear Speech, was a very optimistic goal. So I did not know whether it was going to successful or not, because I did not. So fear speech, we did not even know there was a definition itself. So whether there is a definition or not, whether you can make it annotation friendly to the annotators, or whether it will find annotators for that. So all these things were very optimistic. So that was one line of work which I keep as optimistic part, because I do not know what will happen. Another is a more incremental one. So in that thing, I am trying to modify one existing architecture or add another data set. So even like normal analysis paper. So I think one such work which is very incremental, I always keep in my pipeline, so that even if the optimistic part does not work at certain times, the other part can give me some very, like, even if like calling like conference, like lower conferences also, I can get this accepted and get my peace of mind. Okay, something I have moved forward. So I think I have always made this two like pronged approach, you can say, to tackle my emotions, because if you are getting rejections on your only one work you are doing and that you are getting rejected, that builds up a lot of pressure. That pressure kind of can make you depressed, etc. So I think having at least two lines of work, when one in which one work is a bit easier in your, it easier to accept to the community.
Right.
I think having that is very important. But few of the times, I guess it is okay to get like depressed, sad, etc., because that is also part of life. And like I have written around 15 to 20 proposals, like research proposals, of which all have gotten rejected. And it is easier to get like swayed by emotion and like get sad. But as I said earlier, finding constructive criticism is very important from all the criticism that you've got.
Yeah, now coming to the next part, so about Heidelberg Laureate Forum. So you have recently, last year, you have visited HLF. So I mean, I mean, I think most of the my audience don't know about it. So if you just explain what is it and how to apply, and what was your overall experience attending that forum?
Heidelberg Laureate Forum, I came to know personally from my past senior PhD. So I think, but they also applied, like they attended the thing online, so there were no offline attendees. So I was waiting for some papers to get published and then I can apply. So there is a constraint that in your PhD you can apply only once. So there are 3 stages of application. One is in your master's, one is in your PhD, one in your postdoc. So if you're doing postdoc, you can apply for third term. So 3 times you can apply, 3 times you can get it actually. So I was thinking, once I have enough like enough strong publications and my profile is a bit strong, applying then would be good. So by February 2023, I had few papers in the line. I had 2 tutorials, I guess. So that time I thought, okay, this is a good time to like apply for this forum and I have good chance. And then I applied. So the application process was, there is like a questionnaire where you have to fill some proposal, why do you want to join, etc. Those things are there. If you can explain your problem, so because HLF is a very varied community, like it is not that only computer science are going there, mathematics people are also going there, and the people might not actually understand the problem we're tackling. So you have to make it very crisp and very understandable, like what is the problem exactly you're tackling. So that is one part that is very important. Once you apply, they are very quick to handle everything. So they select around 200 candidates from computer science and mathematics. They call them to this HLF forum, which is happening in Heidelberg every, I think, year. And in that, the main part of that is to interact with the laureates. So the laureates are different Abel Prize winner, then ACM Prize winner, then they also call a Nobel laureate. So the main advantage to the main opportunity, why you should apply for that, is because you are almost directly interacting with all the great minds that you can think. So either you have read their books, or either you have recently saw them get an Abel Prize. So all these things you can actually, like, the environment is so accommodating that they will reach out to like talk to you. So what are you working on, what you are doing. So for example, Diffie Whitefield, like the one RSA system that, so I could actually directly go and talk to him, like, okay, this is that. So that thing, even if you do not have any technical discussions with them, many of them, that thing of actually talking with the inspiration of yours, like sort of, for us computer scientists, a lot of inspirations are from there. So I think that is a very important part of applying to this venue. So more than the technical part that we usually in a conference, what we target is let us have some technical discussions, get some collaborations, get some data, etc.
Right.
But here the goal is actually different. The goal is to actually interact with those who are already like
Great
legends
people.
in our. So I think that is a bit different from what you expect from a conference from here. And you will feel that during the session, the 7 days of Heidelberg as well, because a lot of talks you might be having with a mathematician, and you might be working in a social field. So some of them are
Right.
HCI researchers. They are also interacting with mathematicians. Mathematicians also interact with them. So the community is very like diverse. There are people from different countries. So they, in the past, I think last year they had achieved like 50% male and female ratio from like that is very so even in the country specific, race specific, they have also tried to create the diverse community. So for someone, so you can easily interact with someone from like Africa who is working on something similar and interact with what are the challenges. So I think the goal becomes different. You are not trying to like collaborate with them, but you are trying to understand what are their challenges, like different fields, what are the challenges different fields, and also interact with such brilliant mind. Coming to the experience, it is if you once experience this conference, this 7 days of interaction, you will always feel the other conferences are lacking in every aspect. One more thing that I really like about this forum is that they are very accommodating. So I had to catch my flight at morning 8 or something from Frankfurt, and they were so accommodating that they arranged a bus for us. Like only 3-4 people were there. For them also, they arranged a bus. Another incident was they gave a book of different Heidelberg laureates all through the years who have gotten, and that is a thick book. And one of the person has lost it. So basically, they will not print multiple copies of that. That is like a very costly thing. Limited. Another person has lost it in some venue. The next 2-3 days, they searched the whole thing and they found that book and gave it back to the person. So these are the two instances that make me feel that they are very caring. Like they care for you a lot, the organizers. The second thing is the experience. So like I could not imagine like two things. One is dining inside a museum. So it was a space technology museum, and I was dining with some space shuttle just above my head. So, and I was talking with someone like a laureate about waterfalls in Tennessee. So that is the range. So that is kind of the range of conversation you're having. So basically, it is a different experience. And then the dining in a castle. So if you see that thing, it is a very, very humbling experience. Like to be with all of them, and then you make a lot of friends there because everyone is spending a lot of time with each other for those 7 days. There are sessions like 3 minutes introduction sessions. So you have to interact with person 3 minutes and then move to the left. So there is a circle and there's a circle, and you have to interact. You have to introduce yourself in 3 minutes. You have to explain your problem, where you are from, and everything is in 3 minutes. So those kind of fun activities also are there. Then each time when you are dining, you can choose to sit with a laureate of your choice. So we have sat with different laureates. So in the same dining table, you are actually eating with them, talking with them, and they are not interested that much in technical stuff. They already know a lot of things. That kind of interaction is very rare. So you can know a lot about his research works, what he books has published. You can read his books. But those interactions, so that way I will remember for my life that this is what a person does in his free time. So that is kind of very rare. So I think so if you think about technical expertise, like technical collaboration with people, that might happen, of course, similar to other conferences. But the main part that we go to these, like one should go to this venue is because of the experience that we get. So that is kind of for the life.
Now you have gone to USA for a foreign internship. So if you just share experience about that also.
Yeah, so I have been fortunate enough to get some internships during my course. So I have never, I always planned that I should not spend my summer in Kharagpur because it is very bad. So I only spent this summer in Kharagpur, like till July. But I always tried to like get somewhere for the summer and explore places. So my first, I think, in 2022 also I went to Germany, Hamburg,
Okay.
under with Chris Beeman. So that was more like from a project. They had some funds and they supported it. And the USA one was more of my like. So I interacted with Srijan and then we discussed. Okay, this is a area that we can work. Both this one were through interaction and they are very accommodating. Whoever is like the mentor there. So there is a stark difference in the culture, work culture in US and Europe. So Europe people are very much more free. Like after 5 p.m. you don't see anybody in the office. But whenever they do work, that is very focused. So till 9 to 5, whenever this you see, the work is pretty focused. The first weekend I had some deadline, like ELP deadline. So I spent like, okay, I have to write the paper. So Saturday, Sunday was gone in that. Monday I went to the office. So the mentor Chris, that was like the group head, said that
Yeah.
where did you go in to travel in your weekend? I did not. I was writing a paper. Who works on a weekend? You are like wasting your time here. Why are you not going to travel? So I said no, I have plans, but I had this deadline, etc.
Deadline.
So from there, every Monday you used to ask me, where did you go this weekend? So for them, like it was kind of part of the culture, and that was there. For US, it is more a bit more working nature because they don't have that much of flexibility. But I did visit a lot of places there as well. Research internship in academia. You do not get a lot of like team members. So you and your mentors and maybe one or two more are in the project. So one thing that is important is before going there. So that I faced in US actually. So I did not have a pre-selected problem. So that was not in
Okay.
case of the. And finding that problem initially was a bit difficult. So that took a lot of. And so if you can figure out that beforehand, so when someone is going, if someone can figure, okay, this is the problem, exact problem I like to work on. I think that should be beneficial for like going in these research internships. Other than that, there are a lot of technical problems in each of these different like you will not get money. You will have some. You have to fill some different forms to get money. You have to collect it from somewhere. The stipend is a very crucial part. So you have to see how if you are not getting the stipend for some time, you should be able to support yourself. So that much
Okay.
support you should have. So for me in US, I did not get the stipend for 1 or 2 months. That is because of that is not in the hand of mentors or something like that. Because of the administrative process, the bits you cannot return back at that time. So you have to arrange something. You have to carry enough cash so that you can actually manage that time. Another thing is apart. So I think that is one crucial thing that often people are only looking at, okay, where can I put my technical knowledge? But before technical knowledge, you have to stay somewhere. So I think that is one crucial part that I have experienced a lot. So in Germany as well as in USA, apartment hunting is a very crucial part. So if you are going for less than, let's say, 3 months, getting an apartment is very difficult. When you are going, when anyone is going, like anyone gets an opportunity, the first thing that they should do is to talk with the people there and get an apartment. Like try for an apartment, because if that is handled, you get a well furnished apartment, then a lot of problems get in hostels. What you see, okay, our food and lodging are fixed, so you never have to bother about it. So we do not consider that as an additional part that is requiring time. But when you are going outside, food and lodging both, you have to take care of yourself.
As you mentioned in the beginning that you have recently joined Samsung Research in the R&D division. So how did that happen? I mean, when did you decide that you will be now, I mean, you have to now look for jobs, and how was the overall interview experience in Samsung? So if you just share.
So I was initially like when I joined my PhD itself, I was like more or less certain that I would like to try some industrial research lab, because that experience will be very different from academic lab. So I think I tried for different internship in academic like in industry labs in between, but did not get anywhere. Then towards the end of my PhD, I thought let us see if I can get into an industry lab, because that was kind of one thing that I wanted to experience. So academia is always one opportunity that is open, like that is definitely there, postdocs and professorship. But I always wanted to work on more industry-oriented research, etc. I wanted to experience how it looks like, because that is very different from what academia is. And then I start preparing. So initially, I started sitting for some like startups, etc. So to get the industry, like what are they asking, how is the interview experience? Because during your PhD, let's say for 4.5 years, you are not giving any interviews. You are not setting. You are
Right.
not coding like proper competitive coding that is required for like these interviews. So you do lose a lot of touch over time. So how to handle problems, etc. If you refresh a bit, you can again gain those more confidence. And so that was the initial idea. So initially I was trying to prepare, etc. And then from I think December, January, February, and a bit of March, I think I was spending in like preparing topics. In between, I was giving some interviews, small interviews. And in March, actually, I sat for Microsoft first, and then Samsung. So the Microsoft one happened, so that in that time it was more or less okayish. Like I could solve something or something I couldn't. And the Samsung, it was like a 3-round interview. So so 2 were mostly like research, like you can say research round, where they were asking questions based on the basic of different like NLP research, etc. From beginning from optimization to transformer model. So they have a good depth of questions. Like you can, if you know a good knowledge about NLP, so you should be able to get it. And you have to read a lot for that, like all the parts, not the only parts that you're researching, but also how is optimization done. So for example, you might need to write something like gradient descent from scratch. So those things will be there. So I think getting your basics clear is very important. The second part is the research talk. So that is more, I think, if you are doing a PhD, that is more handleable, because we know what problems we are actually dealing with, and we can answer some of the questions around that. So that is an easier part, I feel, than the earlier rounds, which are more like technical knowledge, technical knowledge. So after these 3 rounds, I think more or less, I had one round with the principal scientist, like the manager here. And they talk about like what is your research aspiration, why are you joining, and then I think in 1 or 2 months they send the offer letter. So that was more or less the process.
So my second last question is, what are the pros and cons of working in a big research group like Complex Network Research Group or CNeRG at IIT Kharagpur?
Yeah, seeing the lab for a lot of time, I think there are like different sides to it. So one thing is that if you are joining a like very new PhD, it is difficult to know whom to talk. So if it is a single lab, let's say 15 members, you get to interact with them daily, and you can get a familiarity with those people. But with this large lab, not all the seniors will be sitting in one place. So mainly for us, like the CNeRG lab is where most of the seniors sit. And you might be sitting in some other lab, like let's say general research lab or some research lab denoted to like REA. So getting interaction with them is missing nowadays. So what I see, because I was in the CNeRG lab from the start, like initial period, I was sitting here because I was working closely with Billy. So I used to sit here and do all my work. And due to that, what happened, I started getting involved in different talks, different like interactions that were happening with the seniors, and that kind of helped me a lot in understanding like, okay, this is the research problem, this is how you tackle research, and from their experiences get to learn a lot. So I think that is one thing that is definitely very difficult, that is very important, but that is difficult in a large lab, because you don't know whom to talk, because you get like, okay, you have a senior. For me, I also have like, I am also guiding 2 PhD students, so they know me, so I am familiar with them. But then again, the interaction you have if you sit in a lab or go for tea breaks, etc., is very different from the technical discussion. I think that is one definite con that happens. The pro part is a lot of people know your lab, so you need additional introduction that, okay, I am from this lab. Anyone, even if someone hears Niloy sir's name, they'll know, okay, you are from Niloy's lab. Okay, then I know. And then they will be interested in the work. So a lot of part of PhD is getting like recognized for your work. The lab is already known. People will generally tend to look into your research more than other, like if your lab is unknown. That is again like a bit of privilege for us, but that is how the world works. So definitely one who is trying to join such a big lab, one thing you should try is start getting involved with the seniors, because see, PhD seniors are very accommodating, like they are very friendly. So they will not like ask you to give your introductions, etc.
There is no ragging in the research lab.
Yeah, there is no ragging. And if you interact with them for 5-10 minutes, you will know that, okay, this person is helpful. So everyone is helpful. So if you're joining such big labs, try to interact with the seniors, because that is where the main like crux of research lies, because you will interact with your mentor, you will interact with your advisor, etc. But the experience that you get from that is very difficult to get. Apart from that, I guess also one point is you might feel intimidated with such a large lab. There are multiple people publishing different papers in different topics. You might feel that you are not capable of the same. But I think with time, that kind of like that thing kind of goes away. So that will again, as I said, interacting with those persons who are actually publishing will again help. So people like you, then Anurag, Shomodev, they are pretty much established in what they are doing. They have found a research problem. They are continuously walking towards that. Interacting with these people outside of, if you are having a technical discussion, that is fine. But outside of that, also, if you have a one-to-one interaction over a coffee, over a tea, or join the group when they're going for tea, coffee breaks, you'll understand a lot about the lab as well as how research should progress.
Okay, so my last question is, what should be your advice for any future PhD aspirant?
So I think one definite quality that you develop if you want to do a PhD is perseverance. So
Right.
you will get a lot of rejections, you will get a lot of like proposal rejects, and you will not get opportunities, you will not get results also. So
Right.
it might happen that few of the cases I know. So Abhig Jana, who is now a professor at IIT Kharagpur. So he got his first paper after 3 years. So 3.5 years he did not have any paper. That is one thing you need to develop somehow. That cannot be taught. So you can teach technical knowledge, you can teach like how to do research, etc. But perseverance is one thing that cannot be taught. And even now, if you see recent graduates like Anurag, he's also in the same boat. He did not have publications for a long time. I think that is one thing that we should definitely try for. It might happen that your one paper is not getting accepted for six cycles. One paper, you don't have any paper for one year. But even then, what you should trust is your research problem. So if you have selected a problem, you will definitely find the motivation to work on. And that is one thing that kind of gets through your PhD. Like even whatever stage you have, at the end it always lines up. So even if you see, you will always get good papers if you are doing good work. That is always rewarding. But the rewarding is not that instant. So you cannot say, I did this work, I got the result, now I get some payment. That is not happening. You get a stipend, that is fine, but the reward of getting a PhD is not that instant. So you will get a delayed reward. So that understanding that requires perseverance. The second thing is looking after your health. So that is both mental as well as physical. That includes how much time you sit in the lab, how much like whether you are interacting with your group or not. Many people I see, what happens, they spend a lot of time in their room and work from there. It is fine. So you are working, you don't want to get disturbed, that is fine. But again, that interaction with others. So one thing I told that, okay, senior, junior interaction, that is separate. But interaction among your colleague also helps you relax a bit, like get stress free, talk about something else than research. So I think a lot of like this is a famous saying that a lot of ideas that happen is actually in our subconscious brain. It is never in our conscious brain. So the subconscious brain is active when we are distracted. So the knowledge that is acquiring in the conscious brain, it always gets some sort of creativity always happens when you are sitting idle. Interaction with friends and like your support system, whatever it might be, your friends, girlfriends, etc., whatever it is, you should always try to keep that interaction intact. And apart from that, physical health. So again, like physical, if you are having a back pain for a longer course of time, you will not be able to do research, whatever you do. Like
Right.
even if you are very stressed, because there are deadlines, you know how it happens. And people are like, okay, we have to do 10 experiments in 1 day or 2 days. But even then, one should try to take a 15 minutes break, go for a walk, try to spend it doing some active sports. So many of the previous seniors actually played table tennis. Then that is very important. So physical health as well as mental health. So if you are going to, if you have to survive PhD for 5 years, it is not a short time. So in that time, very important is that you maintain these two things, because these are for life. So you cannot, if your physical health is gone for once, it is for life. You cannot get it back. So I think whatever pressures you are under or deadlines you're under, these two things should always be there. And the first point is perseverance. So I think if you have these two things, whatever technical knowledge you have, like whether you are one of the toppers or whether you are trying to struggle. So many PhD in our lab are also from different backgrounds, but what they have is this perseverance, because they have spent a lot of time in a problem, they've understood the problem, and finally they are getting the results, maybe after 2 years, 1 year, etc., whatever. But ideally, at the end, you will get the result. So that is kind of two advice that I want.
Okay, I think we are towards the end of the podcast. So I again thank you, Punyajoy, for participating in this podcast. I think from this podcast, the upcoming aspirants who want to do PhD, they will get a lot of insightful thoughts, and they will get a lot of insights about PhD. So yeah, thank you again, and best of luck for your future in Samsung Research.
Yeah, thank you for arranging this. It was very wonderful. Like the questions were very interactive, and I hope I have answered some of them very
Yeah,
honestly.
right.
Yeah, and if it helps the aspirants PhD, I will be very grateful. Yeah.
You'll get a lot of LinkedIn connection after this, so be ready for that. Okay.